Hello everyone, welcome to day 4 of learning data science by Simplilearn. On day 3, we looked at SQL. Today we are going to learn about another important skill, that is visual. Helps you perform exploratory data analysis and find hidden patterns in the data. It lets you analyze trends in the data and draw meaningful conclusions. Today we will learn how to visualize data using Tableau, Power BI and Excel, and create interesting charts and graphs, reports as well as dashboards using leading BI tools. So let's dive in and learn data visualization for data science.
Hello and welcome to Tableau Training for Beginners. My name is Michelle Covine and I'm with the Simplilearn team. So what is business intelligence? Companies use business intelligence technologies to collect, analyze, and present data in order to create actionable information. Today's businesses are always seeking insights about their customers, products, and services. So businesses are faced with many questions, such as how do I know my customers are happy? What would make my customers stay? And how can I increase awareness of my products and services? Business intelligence can help you answer those questions. When you have a question about what your customers are feeling, what your customers are doing, who the customers are, and what's the best channel to target them, business intelligence is a method of transforming your data into these insights and measurable metrics. Business intelligence tools are designed to make the data flow manageable. In the age of information, Tableau is one of many tools to help manage the data flow and turn data into actionable information. We also have Qlik and SAP and Oracle. You may have heard of some of these. Let's take a look at some of the benefits of Tableau as your business intelligence tool. So why would we use Tableau? It can be connected to 40 different data sources. The more data sources it can connect to, it means that you are more likely to get direct access to your data. It can build interactive dashboards with just a few clicks, which can help you quickly understand your data, and it lets you see your outliers. There's also simple analytics built right into Tableau, such as trends and forecasting, that can help you understand your data on a deeper level. Tableau has been a leader in the Gartner Magic Quadrant for the last 6 years, and that includes 2018. Here we will take a look at an overview of the products offered by Tableau. So we have Tableau Desktop, which is where you do all of your development. This is where you connect to and build visualizations and dashboards. Today we'll be using Tableau Public, which is a free version of Tableau Desktop, but with some limitations, such as having no R integration, and it can only support up to 1 million rows of data. Also, any data published here is made public, so you can't use this for private company information. Then there's a new tool called Tableau Prep, where you can prepare your data by seeing it visually before you connect and build reports. There's also Tableau Online, which is a cloud-hosted version of Tableau Server, a place where you can publish your dashboards, and it enables you to share your dashboards in a secure way. Tableau Server has an option to be on-premises. So let's just do a quick comparison between building a visualization in Excel and building one in Tableau. Okay, so here we have an Excel file full of data that we will soon connect to and use for some of our demonstration purposes. And you can see that we have information about orders. If we wanted to find out the quantity sold and the sum of sales for each region, we could do that by creating a pivot table. So we'll make it, I selected my cells, we'll make it in a new worksheet. And here we have the beginnings of a pivot chart. And we can grab region and pull it into our columns. And then we'll grab sales and put it into values. And then we also want to look at quantity and put that into values. And it's automatically summing up sales and quantity, but you can choose if you want it to be sum or not. And then we'll take our values and put it on rows so that we can see sales and quantity one on top of the other. And that's the basics of a pivot chart. Now let's do a similar thing in Tableau. Okay, so we have our connection to the data, and Tableau automatically splits out the dimensions from the measures. We'll go into more depth on that later. But we can come and grab region and put it onto columns, and we get a similar thing, maybe a little nicer formatted. And then we can come and put quantity there. And if we want to add sales to it, we can double click on sales, and we'll have quantity and sales one on top of the other. We can put sales on top by dragging quantity down in that box. We also have this Show Me dialog box, which allows you to see what visualizations you could build using what's already on the screen or the things that you have selected. So right now, we could quickly switch it to bar charts, and now we can see quantity and sales across our region with bar charts. Or we could switch it to stacked bars, and we can see our quantity across the regions. If you close that, we can see our legend over here, and then our sales across the region. So in Tableau, we have a lot of really quick flexibility to turn just text into a visualization. So in summary, we can see a side-by-side of what we made using pivot tables in Excel and what we made in a similar amount of time in Tableau. Let's get started with the Tableau installation. As for requirements, you need Windows 7 or later, or you need your Mac operating system to be 10.11 or later. Here are some of the browsers you can use to install Tableau. We will be installing Tableau Public today, and to do that, you just Google Tableau Public Download and click on that first link, and then you put in your email address and click Download the app. So let's just look up Tableau Public Download, and it's this first one. You can click Download Now, and it takes you to the Tableau Public page where you can click Sign In and create an account free. This gives you a place to save the visualizations you make, but keep in mind anything you save on Tableau Public is public. And then you come here and you enter your email address and click Download the app, and it should give you an executable file that you will download. And once it's downloaded, you should be able to open Tableau Public. So let's go take a look at the Tableau Public opening page. So this is what Tableau Public looks like when you first open it. On your left, you have the different things you can connect to. This is more limited in Tableau Public than it is in Tableau Desktop. So if you invest in Tableau Desktop, you have many things you can connect to. You can also connect to data by clicking this drop-down Connect Data piece. That's especially useful when you've already started your visualization. Then we have this central portion called Open. This is where anything that you have opened up previously will show up. You can also click Open from Tableau Public, and when you have... My connection's timed out, so I need to log in. But when you log in, it says no workbook found. Try publishing first. This is where you'll see all of your published Tableau Public dashboards. Over here we have Discover, and it has some how-to videos, visualization of the day, which is where people who have made Tableau Public visualizations get recognized for their skill, and you get some pretty cool ideas when you look there. So let's get started by connecting to a data source. We'll click Microsoft Excel, and we'll choose our Excel file and open it up. And this is our data source page. This shows you the sheets on the Excel file and allows you to drag them in so that you can see the data show up. This gives you a preview of what your data will look like. You can see that Tableau is starting to classify our fields. So anything that has ABC on it shows that that's a column that has strings in it. We also have a globe, which was where Tableau has recognized these values to be geographical. So we have state, and it's recognized that it contains states. It bases it on the keywords that it stores to identify if it's geographical. And so it takes a look, and you've named it city, and it knows that city is geographical. We also have the calendar symbol, where it's recognized that it's a date field. And we also have row ID that shows up with the hashtag, and it recognizes it's a number. So now that we have our data source pulled in, we can come here and hit Sheet, which is where you start to build your visualization. Let's take a look at all the different pieces of this before we go any further. We have the data that we're connected to up here. It's our orders sheet from the Sample Superstore Excel sheet. We have dimensions on top and measures on bottom. These are where we're going to get the fields to drag and drop. Here we have our cards. We'll look more in depth at our cards in a moment. And these are our shelves, the column shelf and the row shelf, where you can drag things in to make changes happen in the visualization center. We have our Show Me tabs, where you can see, we took a brief look at this earlier, but you can see all of the different visualizations you can build here. A neat thing about Show Me is that when you hover, it'll tell you what types of fields you need to build it. So for a symbol map, try 1 geographical field, 0 or more dimensions, or 0 to 2 measures. and that's how you can build a geographical symbol map. And when you're done with Show Me, you just close it. Let's take a look here at our sheets. So we have sheet 1 and sheet 2. A sheet is basically just one visualization at a time. Let's get rid of the extra sheet. We have a dashboard, which is where you can pull multiple sheets on to show multiple visualizations at one time. And then we have what's called a story, which allows you to show a sequence of visualizations so that you can tell a story. Perfect. Okay, so we saw that Tableau is categorizing our different fields, and it is also giving it a role. So we have dimensions on top and measures on bottom. Dimensions contain descriptive values, such as names, dates, and geographical data. You can use dimensions to reveal details in your data, that is, qualitative details. We also have measures, which contain numeric, quantitative values that you can measure. Measures can be aggregated, and when you drag a measure onto the view, Tableau will apply an aggregation to that measure. It's sum by default. So let's show this by building what we built before. We'll grab region, and we'll see its 4 distinct values as a dimension. And then we'll double click on quantity, and we can see the numbers here, the measures, and you can see here that it is the sum of quantity. And now we can also double click on sales, and we can see quantity and sales. To discuss a little bit more about dimensions and measures, you can see that in general measures are numbers and dimensions are not. But sometimes, like row ID, it is a number. Now, why would we have a number up here instead of in the measures? So you can tell the difference between a number, whether it should be in measures or it should be in dimensions, based on whether you'll need to do any calculations on it, or if you would want to be able to aggregate it at some time. So for sales, if you have several orders in a day, you might want to know what the sum of those sales are. But if you have several orders in the day, and they're on rows 2, 3, 4, and 5, you might not want to know the sum of the rows. So Tableau is smart enough that when it sees ID, it knows that it belongs up in the dimensions. Now you can switch. So if row ID was actually something you would want to aggregate for some reason, you can drag it down to the measures and add it down there. But in our case, row ID isn't something that you want to sum or average. Can you think of any other numbers that might not show up as a measure that should be a dimension? Comment below with your answers. As we discussed before, dimensions are on top, measures are on bottom, and you can see that blue is associated with dimensions and green is associated with measures. But it's a little bit more complicated than that. So dimensions are qualitative and measures are quantitative, but blue means we want our label to be discrete and green means we want our label to be continuous. Let's make a new sheet and make a visualization to kind of show this. So we can bring on quantity, and we're going to use it as a dimension, but you can see even when it's a dimension you can choose continuous or discrete. So right now it's a dimension but it's green. It's a little bit different than what you might expect. And then we'll do sales. So now we can see over the different quantities what our sales was. Has been for this period of time that we're looking at. I believe it's 4 years. So for when people bought 3 items, the total sales was that number. And you can see that this is an axis. So it's from 1 to 15. Now, if we change it from continuous to discrete, you can see that 1 is a label, 2 is a label, and it's not an axis ranging from 1 to, it doesn't even have 15 because there are no values under 15. These are just individual labels. So we go back, it's green again, and you can see that it's an axis. So we have 2 greens on here, so we have 2 axes. And change it back to discrete, and now we have 1 axis and 1 set of individual labels. So let's go back to our sheet 3. We have all of these different sales by the different quantity numbers, and up here we have our sorting. When you hover, it tells you what kind of sorting is going to happen. So we could sort quantity descending by sales. So we can see that when they buy 3 things, we have the highest sales. You can do the opposite, where it's the lowest to the highest number of sales. You can also do sorting more in depth by clicking on the quantity and right-clicking sort. So we could just sort by descending or ascending or by sales or alphabetic, which is not what we want. You can choose the field or you can manually change your sorting here. And now we're back to what we had at the beginning. Now that we've had an overview of how Tableau works, let's go into a little more detail. Tableau is very much built on the premise of drag and drop. So let's build a simple visualization and talk about what each of these shelves and marks cards specifically do. So we're going to make a simple chart which is average sales by region. So we know we want sales on, let's do sales on rows. Now for rows and for metrics, since this is continuous like we talked about before, it's making an axis for our sales. We also can drag region onto columns, and it makes one column per region. So that's how it works with dimensions. If you pull a dimension onto columns, you're saying I want one blank per column. I want one region per column. So if you wanted to do it by instead of region, if you want to remove something from a visualization, you just pull it back off. Or you can hit undo or Control Z. Tableau has the benefit of having unlimited undos. So let's say we wanted to bring on city. Let's say we want one column per city. And that's what you get. And there's a lot of cities. So that's what it looks like. Let's take city back off. I want one column per region. And for sales, I want my rows axes to show me where sales are. Great. Now, let's say we want to adjust the color of these bars. You can click on color, and you can select any of them. So let's pick this nice blue, or we can pick an orange, and that's how you can determine the color. But if you want something else to determine the color, you can take region and drag it onto color, and now we have one color per region. Now with measures, again, since they're continuous, it's going to be more like a scale. So if I want them to be a different color based on sales, and I pull sales onto color, it's going to be darker where there's higher sales and lighter where there's lower sales. So it's continuous from light to dark. But for region, it is one color per region. So they're distinct colors. It's not continuous. Great. Let's say we want to sort this biggest to smallest, and we can look at size here. So if we want to adjust the size manually, we can click on it and drag it. But if we want the size to be based on something else, you choose a measure for the size. So if we want it to be wider based on sales, we will drag sales onto size, and we can see that it gets bigger with bigger sales. We can do the same thing and replace the sales with profit, and now it's bigger if there is bigger profit. And drag that back off. So you can determine manually, or you can do it with your measures. For label, let's say we want the sales onto label. Now we can see the exact sales number for each region. What if we wanted the name of the region there as well? We can drag region onto labels, and we can see sales for the West region. You can adjust which one goes on top. See how we have two T's here? Those are both labels. Great. Tooltip. When we click on Tooltip, it'll show us what's going to happen when we hover. So as I hover here on East, it says Region East Sales, and then it shows the sales amount. Now we talked about, I'll take my labels back off, wanting to make this visualization not for the sum of sales, but for the average of sales. So we will right click on our sum of sales here in the rows, hover over measure, which right now is sum, and change it to average. And we have a different result here. So let's sort again, and we can see that the South region actually has the highest average of sales, which was not the case for the sum. Now let's say we want our sales to be on the label, but look, it's giving us the sum of sales label. So we just do the same thing and change it to average. Now we can see our average on the label. The label has some interesting options, like you can format this, and we could say maybe we want it to be all of them to be blue, and that happens right there. You can also choose to only show the minimum and the maximum. This becomes handy on a line chart where you don't want all marks labeled because it gets very messy, but you want the tallest and the shortest part to be labeled. And maybe you just want the tallest, so we'll click label minimum value and remove that checkbox, and now we just have the tallest value there. And one card that we haven't used yet is the filters card. So we could allow people to look at this, but only certain regions. So what we can do is we can come over to region and right click on it and click show filter, and it will add it to that filters card. And now we can remove central from the mix and just look at those ones. You see, if we remove south, the new highest, east, now has the label, but if we put it back in, south will have the label again. If we don't want to have these filters, we can pull it off there. Or if we wanted to filter out by country, we just have United States. So let's not filter by country. But we could pull in category, and we have these filters by category. If we select them all, they'll all be there. And we click show filter, and it will bring it over here. And we can remove out technology, and the South still has the highest for the other two. But if we only include technology, you can see the difference there. So that's the basics of filters. Another thing that I can mention here is that you can change the type of mark manually. So you saw when we pulled on region and we pulled on sales, it automatically made us a bar chart, but we could change this to be a line chart, and you can see that the color changes because we told it to based on region. If we pull that off, then it would be a line chart there. You can change it to be a lot of different type of visualizations here. So when you're not using show me to help determine your graphs, you can choose it manually right here. Okay, now let's look at building a scatter plot. So a scatter plot is when you have a bunch of shapes and points on a visualization with two axes that are both measures. So if we take sales and put it on the y-axis, and we take discount and put it on the x-axis, we can see our point that represents all of our data with the sum of sales and the sum of discount. And if we wanted to see this per order, we'll take order ID and put it onto detail. Now what detail does is it determines the level that we are building our visualization at. So grabbing order ID and putting onto detail gives us all of these little points. So for each order, what was our sales and what was our discount? So we have out here some outliers that you can find very quickly. Let's actually do product ID instead. So I'll put it right over top of order ID, and it will replace it. Now we see all of our products. Anything that has high sales is up here, anything that has high discount is over here. You can see that it sort of has a trend where things with high sales do not have high discounts, which makes sense. If we wanted to know what category these products all show up in, we could take category and put it onto shape. And now we have 3 different shapes that tell us the categories. Tableau has a cool new highlight feature, which allows you to show just the dimension that you want to see, but it leaves the other ones in place. So for example, if we click on furniture, first we have to turn on the highlight feature, and then click on furniture. And now you can see all of the furniture items popping up in our visualization and how they're kind of clustered in this area and the pattern for them. When we click on technology, we can see their pattern, which is a little bit different. So we have them by shape with category. Let's drag category onto color as well. If you remember, category will determine the color and the shape at this point. And so we can kind of see the patterns happening there. So if we want to see our high discounted items, they're all over here. And most of the things that are getting high discounts are office supplies, which is interesting. And then our highest sales product up here, now we could take that product ID and find out what that product actually is out of our, oh, look, we have product name. Let's replace product ID with product name. And we see that that is a Canon Image Class Advanced Copier. So this copier is our big salesperson. And office supplies binders do not give us very many sales, and we're highly discounting them. So now you know a little bit more about the details card and the shapes card, and about using highlighting in Tableau. So let's say we wanted to know by subcategory what our profit is like. We could grab subcategory and pull it onto columns, and we would say we want one column per subcategory. And then let's grab profit and pull it onto rows, and you can quickly see which categories are profitable and which ones are not. So we can also take profit and put it onto color so that you can see that even more clearly. Right now it is going from orange to blue, which is Tableau's default. If we wanted to change from what color to what color it was going, we have a lot of options in here when you go to edit colors. So maybe you wanted to go from red to blue, just to emphasize that the profit that's negative is bad. So we can hit apply, and now we can see red to blue. We have our categories here, our subcategories here, but let's separate it out by category. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take subcategory off. I'm going to put on category, and now it's by category, and then I'm going to put subcategory on after it. So when we put it in order like this, the order matters in Tableau. So first it breaks it up by category, and then inside of that it breaks it up by subcategory. So furniture's all here, and then there's our subcategories under furniture. If we were to move subcategory to the front, it really doesn't group it appropriately, because first it's breaking it up by subcategory and then by category, and that's not effective. We end up with furniture, 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 furniture spread out across our visualization. So again, let's put category to the front, and now we have our profit by category by subcategory, and we can click sort subcategory descending by profit. And now what it does is within the highest group, within each group, it then sorts it by profit. So you can tell it's not going to break this group apart to move tables to the very end. It's going to keep tables inside of furniture. And then it doesn't move furniture to the very end either. So what we have here is a quick view by category by subcategory how we're doing on profit. We can see that tables is our biggest drain on profit, and so if we wanted to improve the profitability of furniture, maybe we would not sell tables anymore. It's just not working out for us. Another thing about this visualization that we could do to improve it is you can see that there's some of these words are getting cut off, so we could right click on this axis and click rotate label, and now you can read the whole word, and so that's helpful. Also up here we have our title, which right now is the same name as our sheet. So if we rename the sheet to profit by subcategory, then it names the title up here. So this is making it look a little bit better. And then here we have profit, and it shows it but without any like dollar signs. So let's come up here to profit and click format, and you can see that we can format the sum of profit to be currency. And We can do it currency by the thousands, and we can get rid of these decimal places. And now you can see it's just a little bit nicer, a little bit more clear. Maybe we don't have to have the label here that says category/subcategory. So we can hide field labels for columns, because it's pretty clear that these are categories and these are subcategories. So those are some formatting tips for you. Formatting in Tableau is one of those things where there are just a lot of different ways you could change things. So in more in-depth videos, especially from Simply Learn, you'll learn more and more about this. Also, as we are building these visualizations, if you want to have access to this data set so that you can build along with me, just make a comment in the comments below and the Simply Learn team will send you this data set. Now we're going to take a look at creating a hierarchy in Tableau. So we'll make a new tab and we're going to make a sheet called Sales by Product. And so we will be looking at sales as a number. And let's bring on product name. Now, there are a lot of products names, so it's going to make sure that you really want to do this. I'm going to click Add All Members, and now we can see all of our products and their sales over all time. So if we sort this, we can see our highest selling item, which we discovered earlier as the advanced copier. And we scroll down to the bottom, our lowest selling items. So we have our products, and we can group that by subcategory. And you can see I need to put it in the front again. And by category. Alright, I'm going to take product name back off, and we're going to talk about hierarchies. So, a product rolls up into a subcategory, which rolls up into a category. You can create a hierarchy by, let's start with subcategory and dragging it onto category. And it's going to create a hierarchy. We'll call it our product hierarchy. And now it knows that category is the parent to subcategory. Let's do the same thing by grabbing the product name and putting it underneath subcategory. So now it knows category is the parent, then there's subcategory, and then there's product name. This allows you to, instead of pulling this off or putting it back on, you can bring category on, and then you can expand it by pressing this plus button. And now we see, but here's our sales by category, by subcategory. And then here's our sales by category, by subcategory, by product name. This is really useful when you're creating a detail section for your users. And so when somebody wants to know, let's say you have show filter for category and a filter for subcategory. Show filter for subcategory. And they're looking at category here and they're just like, I see technology has the highest sales and I just want to see technology. So I'm going to unclick furniture and office supplies. Let's put category on top. And then, so I just have technology. Well, I want to see what has the highest sales inside of technology. And let's sort it. Oh, phones. Phones does. So I just actually want to look at phones. So I'm going to remove accessories, copiers, and machines. And what has the highest sales inside of phones? And sort it. And now I can see quickly the detailed information without having to change my visualization. Let's give this visualization a little more depth. First, I'll add back in all of our categories and subcategories by showing across region. So we know technology had the highest, but how does it look across region? Now, part of the point of Tableau is to allow the users to read the visualizations very quickly. And when you have big blocks of text like this, it's kind of hard to see which one has the highest because it doesn't quite stand out very quickly. So what we can do is take sales and drag it onto color. Let's change our marks to a square. And now it's going to color each of these. It colors every one of these cells based on its darkness for sales. This is a little bit heavy of a color. You can click color here and change the opacity to give it a little bit of a lighter look. Just makes it a little bit see-through. Great, so now it's a lot easier to see that the West seems to have the highest sales and that technology in the East is the very highest. So now when we drill into subcategory, it keeps that coloring and we can see more in depth and quicker that phones has the highest across most of them. It's not quite the highest in the West because chairs is the highest in the West. There's one place in Tableau where hierarchies are built in, and that's in dates. So dates in Tableau can be very complex because they allow very complex visualizations. So we will not go into depth about dates at this time, but let's take a look at how they work for hierarchies. So we have order date that we can pull onto columns here, and you can see that it's blue, meaning that it's discrete. So each one of these is a header instead of it being an axis across the top. Now let's drag profit onto rows. So now we can see our profit over time for each of these years. And Tableau has some hierarchies built into dates already. So when I click this plus on columns, it'll split it out into quarters. So this is a header, and these are all subheaders underneath that header because it is distinct and discrete right now instead of continuous. So it's split out year, 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 and quarters, 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 quarters. This allows you to quickly compare quarter 1 across all of the years, and quarter 2 across all of the years, and quarter 4 across all of the years. Another way you could add some more detail to this is by taking maybe category and pulling it onto color. And now we have one line for each category, and we can see that drop in technology is a big part of the responsibility for that drop we were seeing in quarter 2 of 2016. So let's take that back off, and let's take quarter back off, and let's explore continuous dates. So here in dates, we have our top section of dates, and then you see it repeats, and we have the bottom section of dates. So we've got year, but we also have year here, quarter, and quarter. Now the top ones are all discrete, and when I change it to a bottom one, year, same thing, same year, it changes it to be green, and now it's continuous. So now instead of this being a header for 2013 and a header for 2014, it's an axis. So the difference here is when I press the plus and it changes it to quarter, instead of adding quarter to year, now it's doing quarter for each year and making one continuous line. And we can keep going and drill down to month. You can go pretty far. Now when we add category as color, we get our 3 lines for the 3 categories. And we also have highlighting turned on here still, so when we click on technology, we can highlight technology with the others in the background, so we don't lose the context of the other categories. Let's take that back off. Next, let us talk about calculated fields. So we'll make a new sheet, and we're going to create our first calculated field. We can create a calculated field by clicking this arrow, which gives us some options, and clicking Create Calculated Field, or we can come and click in the white space below dimensions or below measures, and we right click and click Create Calculated Field. Let's name it Profit Ratio. So this is for if we wanted to create a visualization that showed the profit ratio, but we don't have that measure readily available to us. To bring in fields for our calculation, you can do it in one of 2 ways. One is to start typing it, and it will start auto-prompting you for the different measures or for different calculations or values you can use, or you can come and drag it in. So if we want profit and we want sales, and if we do profit divided by sales, that is a profit ratio unaggregated. Okay, and let's make a second calculated field. We could come here and click duplicate, and that will duplicate our field, but I just want to start over again, so I'll click Create Calculated Field, and I will call it Profit Ratio Aggregated. And in this one, we're going to do sum, click, of profit, click, divided by sum of sales. Okay, so now what's the difference between profit ratio aggregated and profit ratio unaggregated? How will those behave differently in Tableau? Let's look at this by looking at a single order. So first let's bring on all the orders and all the products under that order. And let's look at this order. So I want to filter this whole dashboard to only this order. So I can right click on it and click keep only. That creates a filter up here that only has that box checked. And if I want to get rid of this later, I can just pull it right off of filters and everything will come back. But I want to, so keep only. And now let's take a look at profit ratio aggregated. I double clicked on it and I added it here, and profit ratio unaggregated. Again, double clicking, and now they're side by side. Let's give us a little bit of more room. So when I dragged that out, it gave us more room so we could see them side by side in the entire titles. Okay, so I chose to look at one order and these product names because the combination of order and product name is unique, one per row. We know that Tableau will aggregate the data up to the lowest level in the visualization, and I brought it all the way down to the lowest level of the data source, so we have no aggregation right now. So when we're looking at it without any aggregation, these two calculations are the same. Profit ratio aggregated, let's look at that again. We'll click edit, and that's the one where we sum profit and sum sales before we divide. And then we've got profit ratio unaggregated. So let's also look at profit and look at sales. This is a technique that I use when I'm trying to understand how my calculated fields are working. Try to break it down to the lowest level possible and see if it's doing what I expect. So we've got profit and we've got sales. Now, both of them are at 0.5 or 50%, and that's because profit is 8 and sales is 16 for Adam's telephone messaging. Now, let's take off product name. When we take off product name, we can see that they start to vary. We've got profit ratio aggregated and profit ratio unaggregated. So here we have profit and sales. The profit ratio should be profit divided by sales. So let's open up a calculator and make it a little smaller. So if we take profit at 219.1 and divide it by sales at 508.6, we get 0.4, not 1.8. So where does this 1.8 come from? Well, let's put product name back on here. What happens is, with profit ratio aggregated, it sums up the profit and then divides it by the sum of sales. So that's what we did. When we took off profit ratio unaggregated, we had the sum of profit and divided it by the sum of sales, which is what we want. Profit ratio unaggregated, however, does the calculation, profit divided by sales, and then sums it afterwards. You can see it right here. It's the sum of profit ratio unaggregated. So it makes this calculation, and then it adds up 0.5 plus 0.5 plus 0.3 plus 0.5. And that's where we get our 1.8, which is what we see when we pull off product name. 1.8. So for most calculations, you want to do profit ratio aggregated, where you determine how it's aggregated before you do the calculation. So let's remove profit ratio unaggregated and delete it. Let's go to profit ratio aggregated and just call it profit ratio. Perfect. Now we no longer need anything that we have on our visualization right now, so let me show you a quick trick to clear the board. Tableau has this button up here, which is called Clear Sheet. You can also do on Windows Alt-Shift Backspace, and you just click Clear Sheet and it will start you over with that sheet. And that really helps when you've dragged a bunch of things on and really made a mess when you're trying things out. Okay, so we're going to build a visualization, and we're going to look at region, and we're going to look at it by profit ratio. And so now we have this bar chart by profit ratio. Let's color this by region. We can also pull on profit and sales, and we can see all three of them side by side, split out by region. Now let's say we also wanted to see each region by sales per customer. So let's create some calculated fields that will help us do that. Let's create our first calculated field that's going to get us a count of customers. Let's call it total number of customers. And so we have customer name and customer ID. Let's do count distinct of customer ID. And that gives us the total number of customers. Apply. So right now, we could take total number of customers and see which categories have the highest number of customers. Perfect, but that's just one part of our calculation. We want to see total sales divided by total number of customers. So let's make our second calculated field, and we're going to call it sales per customer. We're going to do our sum of sales, which we can drag in, and divide that by total number of customers. Now you see that calculated field we just made pops up inside of our calculation dialog box. And we hit apply, and it shows up, so we hit OK. And let's replace total number of customers with sales per customer. And now we can see our sales per customer ratio and which ones have the highest. For this next part, I'm going to make a couple of visualizations in a row that all apply to the same information using a couple of different tactics. So first, let's use show me. So I want to look at region and sales for this visualization. So I'm going to control click region after I clicked sales. So one more time, I'm going to click on sales and I'm going to control click region. And I'm going to click show me. And it's going to give me all of the different visualizations I could make with region and sales. Let's pick tree map. Great, so now we have a tree map that shows us our sales by region. And we have the size and the color of the box is both sales. So let's say we wanted the size to be sales, but the color to be profit. So let's grab profit and drag that onto sales. So now we can see our most profitable to our least profitable. Let's edit our colors, and we're going to change it from red to blue diverging, red to blue. But let's go to advanced and make the center number 0. This means that it will never be red unless it's less than 0. So let's hit apply. So it's all blue, and if anything ever goes negative, then it will be red. Okay. Let's call this sheet sales profit by region. Perfect. Now we're going to start using our geographical fields. So we have state, city, country, and postal code. Let's double click on state and see what happens. Awesome. So it is generated these two fields. Tableau has generated longitude and latitude for us. And it's been able to recognize the states in the United States and where they're located and given it a longitude and latitude. So next we will look at sales by state by double-clicking on sales. And what it's done was change the size of the dot based on sales. Now I think I'm going to move sales from size to color, and it has automatically changed it to a filled map instead of dots on a map. Perfect. So now we can see the states with the biggest amount of sales. Let's put it back onto size, and we have our circles again. Let's put sales onto size, not state onto size, and we have our circles again. But let's make them a little bit bigger. These two marks on the Tableau size line are to give you an idea of how big and how small you should go before it gets too difficult to see. So when we go bigger than the bigger line, it detects that you're getting close to having overlap. But it's up to you as the builder. Okay, so we have size for sales again, and for profit onto color again. So you can see anything that is more profitable is darker, and anything that is less profitable, or less than 0 in this case, is orange. Let's do what we did with color before. Change it to red, blue diverging, and set our center point to 0. Okay, so now we know that if anything is red, it was negative in profit. Perfect. Let's name this sheet sales profit by state. Great. Now let's look at sales and profit by category. So we have category and we've made columns. So this is when we drag something to the columns shelf, just remember we want one column per category. And let's double click on sales and it's going to put it into text. And that's not what I want. So let's take sales and drag it onto rows and it automatically makes a bar chart. So now we have one bar with the axis of sales for furniture, office supplies, and technology. Now let's take profit and also put it on rows. So now we have two bar charts, one for sales and one for profit. We can change which one is a bar and which one is maybe a bubble chart by clicking on its appropriate marks card. So if we want to change them both, we can click on all and change them both to maybe circles, and you can see how they go up and down. But if we want to just change one of them, let's put those back to automatic. We'll go to profit and change that one to the circles. So now we can see those profit numbers. And if we want them to be overlaid on the same area, we would right click on profit, the second measure on the rows, and click dual axis. So now let's put them onto the same axis. You can see that their axes are not lined up. Let's go to sales and change it back to a bar. So now we have two charts occupying the same space. One of them is a bar chart and one of them is a bubble chart. And we can see our sales versus our profit. At least they're not the same amount of dollars, obviously, but we can see a higher sales and a higher profit. We also have medium sales and a medium profit. We have a medium sales but a really low profit, and it's interesting to see that contrast. So let's rename this sheet as sales profit by category. And finally, we're going to make our details sheet. So we're going to go down to subcategory level and bring it onto rows. And remember, subcategory can expand out to the actual products. Let's bring that back in. And we're going to bring sales onto columns, which makes us a sales bar chart, and profit onto columns, which makes us a profit bar chart. Now let's color them by their appropriate individual color. So we'll go to the sales marks card and drag sales onto color. Now sales is colored by sales. We'll do the same thing here we did before. We'll go red, blue, diverging, and make the center 0. We actually don't have to do that for sales because sales will never be negative, but it's pretty important for profit. So we'll go to the profit marks card and take profit onto color and do the same thing there. We have red, blue, diverging, advanced, center is 0. Great. So now if it's negative, it will be there. So let's sort this by profit. And so both of them have sorted with profit in mind. And we can easily see our subcategories that have a negative profit. Let's rename this, and we'll call it our details sheet. So now we have these 4 visualizations that all have to do with similar information. I think I want these bigger on the states, so we'll just keep making that bigger. Perfect. Now we're going to make our first dashboard. So for our dashboard, we have information over here that shows you what sheets you can bring on. These get a little bit more complex, so they'll be covered in more in-depth type of videos. And then we have our size. So we could make a range of sizes based on maybe what you're viewing this on. But we're just going to change it to a fixed size. And we're going to make it 1400 by 1000. And this is our dashboard size. So let's bring on sales profit by region, sales and profit by state. Now a map needs a little bit more horizontal space than region does. Let's bring sales and profit by category underneath the region and the detail underneath the state. Give our map more space again. Perfect. Now Tableau has this neat feature called Use as Filter. So you can click use this filter here, and now if I click on any of these, it will filter the other dashboards based on these features. So if I just want to look at the south, and I click on south, it zooms into all my south states. Now my categories have updated to be just the south ones, and my details have updated as well. So we could see that central has pretty big sales, you know, bigger than the south, but the profit is lower than the south. So we can click on central and focus on central. Let's use that uses filter on all three of these dashboards that lead us up to the detail. So building a quick dashboard like this, let's make this taller, would allow you to do some sort of analysis such as, let's take a look at Central because they have relatively high profits but low sales. So we click on Central and then we see, oh man, Texas is having a really hard time. So let's click on Texas, and now we're seeing in Texas that we have negative profit in these categories. So we can control click on furniture and office supplies, and we can see all of our products that are really just killing us in Texas, all of our subcategories. And if we want to go deeper into products, we'll just click that plus sign, and now we see all the products, and we'll sort again, and we can see all the products by subcategory that are really just killing us and are maybe not worthwhile to make anymore. So we're gonna have to reconsider making the 3.6 cubic foot counter height office refrigerator. At least for Texas, it's not very helpful there. And then when you back out of that subcategory section, you can also click somewhere neutral in the dashboard or click on each thing that you had selected to unselect it and go back to the main part of your visualization and start it all over again. Now let's move on and take a look on how to create parameters and sets. So new sheet, and let's make a quick visualization that will apply our parameters and our sets to. So let's take a look at all of our customers by their sales, and let's sort customer name descending by sales. Great. So now we're going to make a parameter that will allow the user of the dashboard to choose how many customers they want to see, how many of our top customers that they want to see. So let's click this down arrow and click create parameter, and we will name it top N customers. Great. We're going to make it an integer, and we're going to give them the option to choose the number of customers within a range. Our low is going to be 5, so we'll let them see 5, or up to 20, and we're going to let them skip with step size of 5. Let's start their current value right in the middle with 10. Okay, so now if you want to see how this parameter looks, you can come down to parameters. Before we only had dimensions and measures on the left side of our Tableau workspace, but now we have parameters that has appeared once we create a parameter. We can right click on that parameter and click show parameter control, and we can see our top N customers. Right now our parameter control isn't built into any of our visualizations, but you can see how it works. We allow them to go down to 5 and up to 20. With steps of 5. Great. Now we're going to create a set. A set is a custom field that defines a subset of data based on some conditions. So the set we're going to build is going to be based on customer name. So when you right click on customer name, you can come down and click create, hover on create, and create a set. So far when we created a parameter and a calculated field, you clicked here with this down arrow, and you saw create calculated field and create parameter, but it's not there. A set has to be based on an existing field, so you come and you click on the field you want it to be based on, and then hover on create and you see set. So here's how we can create a set. Let's name it top N customers by sales. So we're going to allow them to select the top N customers and have that select our top customers by sales. So we want this set to include anything that is in the top, however many they define by the parameter, by sales. So you can come over here to top and change it to by field. We want it to be top, but not just top static 10. We're going to click here and our parameter shows up. So it's going to be top N customers. And then you can choose another field here for it to be defined by, and it's sales, and we want it to be by sum of sales. If we wanted it to be by